I focused on myself, and this is what happened. For most of my life, I chased everything outside me: love, approval, validation, success. I believed that if I could make others happy, I'd finally feel fulfilled. But the more I tried to please the world, the more I lost myself. That's when I decided to stop chasing and start focusing on myself. And that single decision changed everything. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." The truth is, we waste years trying to control what's beyond our reach. People's opinions, outcomes, relationships, even timing. But when you shift your attention inward, life begins to align naturally. It's not magic, it's focus. The power of self-focus is one of the most transformative forces in human psychology. When I began this journey of self-growth motivation, I realized how much of my energy was leaking into things that didn't serve me. Every argument, every attempt to explain myself, every silent hope for approval, they were fragments of my power, scattered everywhere. The moment I gathered that energy and turned it inward, something shifted. I started building discipline, peace, and personal power. My days became quieter, but my purpose grew louder. Self-discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. It's not about forcing yourself to work harder. It's about working smarter with clarity. When you focus on yourself, you stop seeking shortcuts and start respecting the process. You discover that consistency builds confidence, and confidence attracts everything you once chased. Relationships improve, not because you beg for attention, but because your calm energy draws respect. Work opportunities appear not from luck, but from alignment. The power of self-focus lies in simplicity. Detachment and growth walk hand in hand. When you stop forcing things, the right ones fall into place. When you stop chasing people, the right ones stay. When you stop doubting yourself, life starts to cooperate. Inner peace and focus aren't destinations. They're states of being that radiate outward. Healing through solitude taught me that silence is not emptiness. It's refinement. In solitude, I found self-mastery, emotional independence, and mental clarity. I began to see that focusing on yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. The world reflects your inner state. Chaos inside creates chaos outside. Order within creates order without. And slowly, everything began to fall into place. The things I once fought for came naturally. Opportunities matched my effort. Relationships met me where I stood. And the constant noise of life softened into harmony. If you're tired of running after things that never seem to stay, stop. Turn inward. Reclaim your energy. Because when you focus on yourself, your growth, your peace, your discipline, the universe rearranges itself in your favor. That's not philosophy. That's alignment. For years, I tried to control everything: people, outcomes, timing. I thought that if I held on tighter, things would finally fall into place. But they didn't. The more I clung, the more life slipped through my hands. Then I learned the truth. Detachment isn't losing interest. It's reclaiming peace. The moment I let go, everything started to align effortlessly. You lose yourself when you chase what isn't meant for you. Detachment and growth are two sides of the same coin. To detach doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing. When you remove the need to control outcomes, you open the door to mental clarity and emotional independence. Life stops being a battlefield and starts becoming a mirror that reflects your inner balance. In the philosophy of Stoicism, they call this the discipline of desire, mastering what you can control and releasing what you can't. Most of our suffering comes from resisting the present moment. We fight against what is. But the power of self-focus begins the moment you surrender that fight. When I accepted this, I stopped trying to make people understand me, stopped begging for closure, and stopped fearing loss. I turned all that energy inward into self-discipline, self-mastery, and healing through solitude, and something changed. My relationships began to stabilize. My decisions became clearer. I felt lighter. The world didn't suddenly become perfect, but I became peaceful within it. The law of detachment is simple. When you stop chasing, what belongs to you finds its way home. When you stop overthinking, life flows with less resistance. The inner storm settles, and from that calm, personal power rises. Focusing on yourself is not about isolation, it's about alignment. You begin to see that life isn't about control, but connection. Connection with your values, purpose, and peace. The more I practiced detachment, the more aligned I became with the life I always wanted. I learned that inner peace and focus create outer harmony. When the mind is still, clarity follows. When the heart is steady, the path clears. The secret to alignment is trust. Trusting that you don't need to force what's meant for you. Detachment is freedom disguised as discipline. It's saying, I choose myself, even when nothing around me makes sense. Because when you stop forcing outcomes, life begins to flow in ways logic can't explain. So if you're tired of fighting for peace, stop. Choose silence. Choose yourself. Let go and watch what returns. Because when you master detachment, you master alignment, and everything starts to fall beautifully into place. Power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from not needing to be. For years, I thought influence meant pleasing people, being kind, saying yes. But Machiavelli's philosophy taught me something different. That real strength begins with control over yourself, not over others. The moment I stopped trying to win approval and started mastering my own energy, I became untouchable. Distraction is the enemy of power. Every time you chase validation, explain yourself, or try to prove your worth, you hand your control to someone else. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The one who governs himself commands the world. When I redirected my attention inward, I found what he called strategic isolation, the art of building authority through silence, focus, and self-discipline. In the modern world, self-focus is your greatest strategy. The power of self-focus creates personal transformation. It sharpens your mind, restores your mental clarity, and builds emotional independence. People start to respect you not because you demand it, but because your energy no longer bends to please them. You become the calm in a room full of noise, a person whose peace feels like power. Machiavelli wrote that men are drawn more to appearances than truth. When you focus on yourself, you learn to stop performing. You become authentic, deliberate, and grounded. That authenticity is magnetic. It's the quiet confidence that makes people listen when you finally speak. It's self-mastery in motion, not through manipulation, but through emotional restraint. I began practicing what I call selective engagement. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every opportunity is worth chasing. By conserving my focus, I multiplied my results. The moment I mastered my impulses, I gained influence without force. This is the Machiavellian paradox. The less you chase power, the more it gravitates toward you. And here's the truth. Your greatest competition is the version of you who wastes energy on proving things. When you stop seeking approval and start building discipline, life begins to align naturally. Detachment and growth become your armor. Healing through solitude becomes your training ground. Inner peace and focus become your weapons. When you master yourself, you no longer fight for respect, you attract it. You no longer demand attention, you command it. And you no longer fear loss, because your strength doesn't come from what you have, but from who you've become. So focus on yourself. Build discipline. Cultivate silence. Let your energy speak louder than your words. Because when you govern yourself with precision and clarity, everything else falls into place, effortlessly, powerfully, inevitably. The version of me that needed approval, attention, and validation had to die. For too long I lived for others, bending, pleasing, chasing. Every decision was an attempt to be enough for someone else. But the more I tried to fit in, the further I drifted from who I was. One day, I decided to stop explaining myself and start rebuilding myself. That choice began my psychological transformation. At first, focusing on myself felt selfish. I had been conditioned to believe that self-prioritization was arrogance. But the truth is, it's survival. Carl Jung wrote that the greatest burden a soul can carry is the unlived life within it. And that's exactly what happens when you ignore your own needs for the comfort of others. Your authentic self remains buried under the expectations of the world. My transformation began with silence. I stopped reacting to everything. I stopped defending myself. I stopped trying to convince people of my worth. Instead, I turned inward, into solitude, into stillness, into self-discipline. The process wasn't easy. Growth never is. But as I embraced detachment and growth, I found a new kind of peace. Not the kind that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from knowing you're aligned with your truth. Focusing on yourself means reclaiming the energy you've been giving away. Every argument, every disappointment, every over-explained story, all of it drains the power of self-focus. When you stop pouring energy into others' approval, you redirect it into building your own foundation. That's where personal transformation begins, in solitude, in discomfort, in quiet rebuilding. Healing through solitude isn't loneliness, it's purification. You strip away false identities and rediscover your essence. Emotional independence and mental clarity begin to replace anxiety and chaos. And once your inner world becomes stable, your outer world adjusts to match it. That's the hidden law of alignment. Life rearranges itself to reflect your internal order. I learned that transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. Self-mastery and discipline turn pain into purpose. Inner peace and focus become your compass. And slowly, life begins to respond differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. Now, I no longer chase. I attract. I no longer explain. I express. I no longer fight to be seen. I simply am. That's the essence of psychological transformation. Evolving from reaction to creation, from fear to power, from chaos to clarity. So focus on yourself. Rebuild quietly, heal deeply, and watch as the universe aligns with your new energy. Because when you transform from within, everything outside eventually follows. There's a universal law that most people ignore. What you focus on expands. It's not just a spiritual idea. It's psychological, energetic, and deeply practical. Whatever you give your attention to, consciously or unconsciously, grows stronger in your life. When I stopped focusing on distractions, on people who didn't value me, on problems that didn't deserve my energy, something remarkable happened. My peace expanded, my confidence deepened, and my world aligned. In the beginning, I didn't believe it. I thought success and happiness were external, found in validation, opportunities, or relationships. But when I redirected my focus inward, everything shifted. I learned that the power of self-focus is magnetic. It pulls opportunities, clarity, and alignment toward you. That's because your attention is creative energy. It builds whatever you continuously feed it. Think about it. When you constantly focus on problems, you breed more frustration. But when you focus on solutions, growth follows. When you dwell on what's missing, you live in lack. But when you focus on gratitude, you attract abundance. This is the quiet secret behind personal transformation and self-growth. You don't chase change, you cultivate it through focus. The more I practiced awareness, the clearer this law became. My inner dialogue changed from "I'm not enough" to "I'm becoming," from "I'm lost" to "I'm learning." And with every shift in focus, my outer world started to mirror my inner progress. That's when I realized your mind is the architect, your attention is the blueprint, and your reality is the construction. Discipline became the gateway. Self-mastery isn't about control, it's about direction. Every day, I chose to focus on growth instead of gossip, on creation instead of consumption, on progress instead of perfection. Slowly, the noise around me faded. I stopped comparing, stopped seeking validation, and started building in silence. And the results spoke louder than any announcement ever could. What you focus on expands, also applies to emotions. Focus on fear, and it multiplies. Focus on peace, and it spreads. That's why detachment and mental clarity are essential. They help you filter what deserves your energy. Healing through solitude becomes easier when you understand this law, because you stop wasting focus on chaos and start channeling it toward calm. Now I see focus as a form of spiritual alignment, a sacred practice that transforms ordinary days into extraordinary progress. When you guard your attention, you guard your destiny. Every thought is a seed, and where you place your focus determines the garden you grow. So focus wisely, because whatever you water with attention expands.